Okay, so this video is about this little, well, large, should I say, MSI motherboard here. This is a Z97 Gaming 3 board. It's the MSI gaming series with the red dragon on. And this has got damage to it that stops it from working. Now, it's had thermal compound spilt on it. As you can see, it's all down here as well, where someone was a bit generous with the application to the heatsink. And also, under this cover, there's damage to the pins and more thermal compound. I'll try and zoom in. Okay, so that's a bit of a closer look. You can sort of see there where some of the pins are out. There's a couple more as well in other locations. So I'm going to attempt to bend these bent pins back and get the board working again. The thermal compound was worse. It was around the socket on the board as well. But I have wiped a bit of that off with a piece of toilet paper. So let's try and do these bent pins first, because hopefully we can bend them back and we won't snap any off. So let's get down to that. I'll try and position the camera at a good angle. Okay, that's probably a bit of an okay angle for you to see what's going on. I can't really show you them all at the same time because of the way that the pins are angled on an Intel LJ socket. They sort of stick up one way, some of them stick up the other way, so they're all going different directions. Now originally this board was supposed to just have thermal compounds built on it and need a clean, not bent pins, but then when they give me the board to clean it, it turns out that the pins are bent, which is probably most of the reason why it is not working. So I'm going to turn the board around, try and get where I can see well, because as well as filming this, I also need to be able to see what I'm actually doing in the socket, just to not bend it the wrong way or snap it off. So in order to try and bend this back, I've got a small pin. I'm going to touch it down and just try and unhook the pin from the other one. So it's not attached. You can see it's moving down freely. I'm then going to try and bend it back over by pushing it that way. Now do take your time if you're doing this, because one wrong move could spell game over. Because if you break this socket, the board is dead. There's no way you're getting a replacement socket. So I'm going to go in. Just try and move that over without interrupting the other pins. Just zoomed in a bit more. You can see I've now got it unhooked from underneath. So if I can just push that a touch more over, you can see it's very eager to go back to where it was. There we go. Let's just get a little bit more on that. Okay, I feel like that's probably as close as we're going to get that for the moment. So that pin's in. This one here seems to be a little bit out, but that should still make contact. The other thing you're watching for as well is these pins are made up of two parts. You've got the piece here, which is reflecting to the camera, and then you've also got the tip that actually makes contact with the CPU itself. So that piece can snap off the end piece, which is very thin, and leave the rest behind. Now then you're a bit screwed unless you can possibly prise these up to make contact with the bottom of the CPU, because if you lose the tip, then that couple of millimeters that it gives you can really be make or break. Or you hope, of course, that that pin isn't needed, because not every single one of the pins in a socket on a motherboard is required. Some of them are redundant. So I've zoomed out a touch. You can see now that pin sort of blends in again as to where it is. We can still see it's there. That was the bad one, but it looks a lot more in line. This is the next one that's going to need some attention. So I'm just going to gently go down to it, and I'm just going to nudge this over a touch, make sure that these are all freely moving, not caught on anything, and in line. So as you can see, they got a bit of spring to them. Seem to be sitting okay. So that's fine there. I think we could possibly get away with that pin being slightly out. So let's have a look around the socket closer. I'm using the camera to look at this closely because it's better than my eyes when it's zoomed in, because I haven't got a magnifying glass to hand at the moment. That would be a good thing to have if you've got one. Okay, so I can also see here we've got some thermal compound that's just kind of chilling in the middle of the socket. So I'm going to remove that, because I don't know what paste they've put on here, and whether it is conductive. I would hope not. Alright, that CPU socket looks pretty good to me. I'm going to clean this other thermal compound, and then we'll see if this thing posts. I'm going to have to dig a stick of memory out for it, which is something else I've not got much of to hand at the moment. Okay, so something else that's up with this is that paste that was down here that I've just wiped a bit of it off from here has also gone into the PCI slots. Now you can see I've cleaned a bit of it up, but there's still some in there, like in the slots on the contacts. So the way I've come up with for cleaning this is a small screwdriver, small screwdriver with a piece of tissue or kitchen paper on it, and I just kind of wrap it on like that so it's over the end. And then, let me focus on the board. If I kind of push it down, if you look in these little grooves, you can see where the pins are. If I push this down, it moves the pins. So this is cleaning the contacts in the socket, just by pushing it in and out along. So I've gone along and done that into the PCI sockets. And I've also just got to get up close down here and clean a few bits off the board, which I'm using the same method for, because it's got in between some of the tracks on the board. You can see there. And it's quite hard to get in there and actually rub it. Plus you have to be very careful not to break the tracks. Okay, I've now cleaned in all of the PCI slots, so all the contacts should be good along there as well. Not that they should really prevent it from starting up, but you never know. The memory slots have got a bit of crap in them, but I've just managed to blow that out. You can see it's mostly out of there now and the contacts look okay. The CPU socket's looking good. So I've got here this Core i5, I believe it is. Core i5 4460 processor. So I'm going to drop this in. This has come with the board. Presumably the processor works. And this has got a bit of thermal paste on it as well. Again, I gave it a quick wipe over with my t-shirt the other day, but I'm going to just make sure it's all clean again with the cloth, just to give it the best possible chance of working. Okay, the chip's now nice and clean. There's just a couple of bits on the top, but I'm going to clean this with isopropyl alcohol as well, or rubbing alcohol, which is here. But I'll do that once it's in the socket because it's easier. So yeah, I'm going to install this now into the board very carefully. One thing that you want to do once you've bent these pins back is be very careful of inserting and removing CPUs. You really don't want to put any stress on the pins because they will already be weak from you having to bend them back and from them being bent in the first place. So as you can see, it still looks like there's a couple of little marks there. We're never going to get them perfectly spot on as they should be, but we can get them close enough to make appropriate contact and not short anything else, then that's a winner. So I'm going to line up the notches and drop the CPU in, put the retaining arm and socket cover back down, and the chip's now installed. So I'm going to get a piece of loo roll, some isopropyl alcohol on it, and clean the CPU, and then I'll rig up the power supply and hook it up to a monitor. I'm just going to use the integrated video. I'll stick some random memory in it and we'll see if it works. So fingers crossed it will have survived. Okay, so upon connecting the power supply and these front panel connectors to test the board, I've actually just noticed down here that there is more damage. Right at the side of this header, you can see those green tracks where it's mouldy and has corroded and has eaten away a bit at the PCB. You can see that right there. Now that's bad, and that might be part of the reason that it wasn't working as well. So I'm going to go ahead and try it now before cleaning that and see if it does anything. Failing that, I think we need to focus our attention here next. But it's all set up now anyway. Okay, so this is the test setup for the moment. You'll notice there's no memory installed. I've actually got memory here, but I'm not installing that at this moment. So the CPU is in the socket. I haven't got a heatsink and fan to hand, but you can run okay without a heatsink anyway. And obviously there's just a power supply going into the board. I've connected these headers to what, according to the manual, should be the appropriate ones to make the LEDs and everything work. And I'm going VGA out to a monitor just up here. But there's going to be no picture anyway since there's no memory installed. So let's just do a power on test for the moment. So there's the supply on, power on, and we've got a beep, which is good, that's okay. Are we getting in warm at all? Not noticeable at the moment. But let's install a memory module. We'll go in the first slot. So I'm just going to drop this module in and try and start up a game. See if we get anything at all. Which it doesn't seem we are doing. CPU is getting warm. The audio section of the board is lit up. Cannot see any of the error lights on or anything. So I'm now just going to try this memory module in the next slot along. Ensure that the video cable is fully connected. Turn on the power supply and on the board again. Have a see if we get anything different this time. I am watching the board for LEDs coming on. I've not noticed any of them flashing on or lighting up at all. Okay, I'm going to connect a keyboard as well so we can look for the numlock light. Okay, I've got a keyboard in the mix. Let's turn this on. Watching for any numlock lights or anything that will give us an indication of anything happening. No, it seems stuck. Okay, you can see there the green corrosion and residue on the board. There's also some over here, if you look closely. You can see it around this area, right there, and down here. And there's some more over here. So this area has also been wet, or had something spilt on or near it. So that's probably not helping, because I no doubt this has got something to do with the memory. So I'm going to clean this. Now how I'm going to do that is I've got a paintbrush that's clean, never been used obviously, a toothbrush, and some contact cleaner. So you can see here that this says fast acting and non-conductive cleaner. It has to be non-conductive, otherwise it could cause a short. For use on electrical equipment, contacts, plastic and rubber. Electrical equipment, contact cleaner. That is what you want for cleaning this kind of stuff, because otherwise you could cause more problems than you're fixing using it. So what I've got is the narrow nozzle on it. I'm going to spray it on, leave it for a second just to cling on to the crap that's on there, and then I'm going to brush it off with the toothbrush by scrubbing it. First I'm just going to lightly go over the surface mould and stuff and get that off though, with the normal brush. So you can see this is a lot better already. And all I've done up to now was the normal brush and this brush, and I've just scrubbed on it. And then I'm now going to spray some contact cleaner with this nozzle straight at it. So just a little. Oh, that was a bit much, but that doesn't matter because it's non-conductive and it's fast drying. So now I'm just going to scrub that area that's affected with the toothbrush to try and remove the crap, and you can see it's drying already. I'm also going to scrub a bit of this just to get it out of the way a bit quicker. So that's all dried off there now. You can see this is getting better, but there's still a bit there. I'm just going to scrub it a bit more with the end of the brush. And it's coming off, as you can see. We're almost all gone. This will knacker the brush, but this is an old toothbrush anyway. That's just been used for cleaning crap off boards, so it's not a problem. I wouldn't advise you do this with one you intend on using. Okay, so that looks like it might be about as good as we're going to get down there. I can't really feel the bump anymore. You can see a little bit where it's nibbled away at it, but hopefully that should be enough to break any connections between traces or any other damage it's causing. And if you leave this around, it will continue to eat away at the board and damage more things. So you do need to get rid of this stuff. You can't just leave it there just because it works for the time being. So up here again, I'm going to go in, I'm going to do this little fella here that seems to have quite a lot on him at the moment. And just spray that on. See how far this has gone everywhere? This is another reason why it has to be non-conductive. Because if there's any of this left behind and it was conductive, it would short out all kinds on a board like this. I've actually previously saved laptop motherboards that have had Coca-Cola spilt over them doing this exact same thing. It just takes time, effort and energy, which a lot of people aren't willing to put in. So I'm just going to continue scrubbing away here and removing this. I'll probably cut some of this out because it's quite a lot to scrub. As you can see, it's all around everywhere. Because of the state of the board, I've also removed the heatsink from the south bridge, which is just 2 screws on the back. And everything under here looks okay. I had feared that water might have got under here and corroded and damaged a lot of the board, but it's actually pretty much fine. I don't think anything at all has been under there. I've also finished cleaning up here, and you can now see no green anywhere. So that's all gone. Actually, there's a little tiny spot there, but I can just catch that with the brush in a second. Everything else it's removed from. So hopefully this will give it a fighting chance. So I'm going to screw this heatsink back on and then I think we can try it again. Okay, everything's together. I've cleaned all of that stuff now. I've put the heatsink back on, I've connected the power supply, the monitor and everything else. We're ready for another test. So let's throw on the power supply. Turn on the board. And have a see what we get, if anything. Getting nothing on the keyboard. Nothing on the monitor. I may well try a different memory module than this. Yeah, let's try a different stick on memory as well. Okay, I've put another module in, and in the first slot this time. Let's try again. Not getting any beeps or anything. I don't know whether the board should beep when it posts though. No numlock. No video out. The CPU's getting warm though. Okay then. Perhaps it needs to detect a CPU fan. What if I plug a CPU fan in? I'll just try out of interest. Okay, I've got a random heatsink and fan. It's not for this socket, but it'll do to show if the fan is spinning and operating. So let's turn that on. Off it goes. Still not doing anything on the keyboard. I think I might have to reset the BIOS by removing the battery and try that out. So let's do that now. Okay, I've removed the battery from the board. Let's try and turn it on now. See if anything changes. Doesn't seem to be. CPU's still getting warm. Okay, so I've switched over to HDMI video output. Just going to try that, see if anything changes. This is all trial and error at this point. This would be handy now if the board had a little display on it that gave you an error code if there was a problem posting, because then I would know where it's up to and where it's stopping. This is assuming this CPU does work. Let's just take the CPU out again and have a look if that has bent itself back again. Okay, so there's where the damaged pin is. You can actually see it quite clearly, clearer than I expected. It's sort of up, but I don't think it's quite perfectly where it needs to be. Because depending on what angle you look at, it looks fine. And some angles, it's like it's not there. For example, from top down you can see where it's not quite where it wants to be. It's not like the others. I'm going to try a bit of a crazy experiment here and just sit the CPU on top, put the retaining arm down, or put the retaining cover down, but not fasten the arm. And I'm going to try and start the system like this. I would never advise this. This is just a test to see if anything changes. This is of course hoping the weight is enough to make the CPU make contact with all those pins, of which nothing has changed. CPU is still getting warm, so it seems to be making contact. Well, that's interesting. Okay, so here's a bit of a development. It's running, and there's no CPU and there's no RAM installed, as you can see right there. But none of these LEDs have lit, not the CPU ones or anything. There's no beeps, nothing has changed, other than the fact that there is no power LED, which is odd. I'm going to install just the CPU with no RAM and try that next. Okay, just the CPU, no RAM. Power LED, long beep, long beep, long beep. 3 long beeps. Okay. You know, I wonder whether it's this RAM. I'm going to double check that this is supported with the board, but I mean it should be. It's DDR3 1333. Okay, so Z97 Gaming 3 says DDR3 10600 1333 1600 blah blah blah. So it should work. But just to test, I've got another module here. This is a 1 gig stick of 10600. So I'm going to put this in now and we'll try it with that. Okay, I've got my 1 gig module of 10600 installed. Let's see if anything changes now. Not up to now. No numlock. No display. Something could of course have been damaged by that mould and spillage on the board. The CPU is getting quite warm, but I don't think it's going to actually work. So I'd probably put this board down to dead, because I mean, we fixed the bent pins, I've cleaned the mould off, there's not much more I can do with it. I've even tried it with a graphics card as well, just quickly. I think that's it for this video. There's not much more I can do with this board. But if you found it helpful, leave a like. If you've got any suggestions, leave them down in the comments below. And as always, subscribe for future random tech videos like this one. Thanks for watching.